History is not a river. It is a storm of diverging paths, a blizzard of possibilities. We stand in our present, looking back, and see a single inevitable road. We see the monuments, we read the plaques, we accept the outcome as preordained. But it is not. The fabric of our reality is woven from a billion near misses, a million split-second decisions, and the echoes of moments that could have, so easily, gone the other way. July 1863. The United States of America is tearing itself apart. For 2 long, bloody years, the Union has fought the Confederacy, brother against brother, in a war that has consumed the nation. General Robert E. Lee, the seemingly invincible commander of the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, has done the unthinkable. He has invaded the North. His army, 75,000 strong, has crossed the Potomac and marched deep into Pennsylvania. He is seeking a single, decisive battle. A battle that will shatter the will of the North, force Abraham Lincoln to the negotiating table, and win, once and for all, independence for the Confederate States of America. In Washington, D.C., there is panic. President Lincoln has just replaced another general, placing the fate of the Union in the hands of George Meade, a competent but untested commander who has been in charge of the Army of the Potomac for less than a week. The stakes could not be higher. A Union loss here, on its own soil, would be a catastrophe. It would validate the Southern cause, embolden the Copperheads, Northern politicians demanding peace at any price, and, most critically, it would almost certainly trigger foreign recognition from Great Britain and France. The war, for all intents and purposes, would be over, and the Union lost. The 2 armies collide, not by design, but by chance, at a quiet crossroads town, a place known for its Lutheran seminary and its peaceful fields. A place called Gettysburg. For 3 days, from July 1st to July 3rd, 1863, hell is unleashed upon the earth. The first day, a chaotic Confederate victory. The second day, a series of brutal, desperate struggles for the Union flanks, the Peach Orchard, the Wheat Field, Devil's Den, and, most critically, a small, rocky hill on the Union's extreme left flank, a hill called Little Round Top. In our timeline, this is where the Union line holds. It is where Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain and the 20th Maine, out of ammunition and facing overwhelming odds, order a desperate bayonet charge, sweeping the attacking Alabamians from the hill and saving the Union Army from collapse. The line bends, but it does not break. The next day, July 3rd, Lee, believing the Union center has been weakened, orders the most infamous assault in American history. Pickett's charge. 12,500 men marching across a mile of open field into a storm of cannon and rifle fire. It is a glorious, terrible, and futile disaster. The charge is broken. The Confederate army is shattered. Lee, defeated, retreats back to Virginia. The high water mark of the Confederacy has been reached and the tide has receded. But history hangs by the finest of threads. A misread order, a delayed message, a single bullet. What if the thread had snapped? What if, on the afternoon of July 2nd, General James Longstreet, Lee's old warhorse, had not been delayed? What if his assault, aimed at the Union flank, had struck just 10 minutes earlier? 10 minutes before Chamberlain's 20th Maine had time to form their line upon that vital hill. What if the men from Alabama had seized Little Round Top? This is the fracture point, the moment our world, and another, split forever. Without the anchor of Little Round Top, the entire Union flank unravels. The men who, in our world, would repulse Pickett's charge are instead in a full, desperate retreat, fighting for their lives as the Confederate line rolls them up, hill by hill. General Meade, seeing his army disintegrating, has no choice. His council of war, held that night, is not a debate over whether to stay, but where to retreat. The Army of the Potomac, battered and broken, abandons Gettysburg, falling back towards Washington, D.C. to save the capital. Robert E. Lee stands victorious on Cemetery Ridge. He has done it. He has won the decisive battle. The immediate consequences are seismic. The news hits Washington like a cannonball. Panic grips the city. Gold prices skyrocket. The draft riots in New York City, which in our timeline were a bloody protest, now become a full-scale insurrection, as Governor Horatio Seymour declares the war a failure and demands Lincoln begin peace negotiations. President Lincoln, his face etched with a grief deeper than any man should bear, refuses. He gives a speech, not an eloquent dedication at a cemetery that he never visits, but a desperate, fiery plea to a panicked Congress, begging them to hold the line, to raise one more army. But it is too late. Lee, his army battered but triumphant, does not need to assault Washington. He simply has to wait. He advances his army, not on the capital's formidable forts, but on the crucial railroad lines. He severs the link between Washington and the rest of the North. The capital is surrounded, cut off, besieged not by force, but by strategic starvation. And then the final domino falls. Across the Atlantic, in London, Lord Palmerston, the British Prime Minister, has been waiting. He has been under immense pressure from textile mill owners, starved of Southern cotton. Gettysburg is the proof he needed of Confederate viability. Her Majesty's government officially recognizes the Confederate States of America. Within a week, Napoleon III of France follows suit. They do not declare war on the Union. They do not need to. They offer mediation. They demand the Union lift its blockade of southern ports. A British fleet appears off the coast of New York to ensure the safety of transatlantic trade. It is checkmate. Abraham Lincoln, the man who swore to preserve the Union, is the man who must now sign its death warrant. In the spring of 1864, at a grim meeting in London, the Treaty of Recognition is signed. The war is over. The Confederate States of America is a new, independent nation. The United States of America is no more. It is now the United States, plural. Let us now step forward. Let us walk through this new, fractured world. The year is now 1914. 50 years have passed since the War of Separation. North America is a continent divided. It is a land of two nations locked in a state of permanent, icy hostility. The border is the American Iron Curtain. The Mason-Dixon line and the Ohio River are not state boundaries. They are heavily fortified international borders. Trenches, barbed wire, and forts dot the landscape from the Atlantic to the contested territories of the West. The United States of America, or the USA, is what remains, the North. It is a truncated, bitter, and powerful nation. Having lost the war, it has become a society defined by it. It is highly industrialized, militarized, and deeply nationalistic. Think, a North American Prussia. The lost cause is not a Southern myth, it is a Northern obsession. Remember, Gettysburg is the national slogan. The government in Washington is powerful, centralized, and pours its wealth into two things: industry and the military. Its sole foreign policy objective is the eventual, violent reclamation of the traitor states. And what of the Confederate States of America, the CSA? The South won its independence, but at a terrible cost. It is an aristocratic oligarchy, its economy still largely agrarian. It achieved its dream, but immediately faced a new reality. To gain that vital British recognition, it had to make a concession. The British Empire, having abolished slavery decades earlier, could not, in the light of day, ally itself with a slave nation. So, the CSA was forced to end slavery. But this was not an act of liberation. It was a political negotiation. The Emancipation Act of 1870 was a gradual, compensated program that freed the people but chained them to the land. The 4 million enslaved people were freed into a system of apartheid, a rigid racial caste system that made Jim Crow look benign. They became serfs, tied to the very plantations their ancestors had worked, their freedom a mockery. King Cotton still reigns, but its throne is in London. The CSA is economically a client state of the British and French, who happily finance its railroads and exploit its resources, all while keeping the aristocratic planter class in power. The great westward expansion of our timeline never happened. Instead, it became the Great Scramble. The USA and the CSA raced to claim the territories. The Indian Wars were not a one-sided affair. They were a three-way proxy war. Tribes like the Sioux and the Comanche became powerful players, aligning with the USA or the CSA, whichever offered more guns and a better deal. There is no transcontinental railroad. There are two: the Union Pacific, running through the north, and the Confederate Southern Pacific, running through Arizona and New Mexico. with armed guards at every station, daring the other side to cross the line. And what of the world stage? The United States never became a world power. It was too busy staring across the Potomac. The Spanish-American War of our timeline? It never occurs. Cuba is not liberated by the USA. It is purchased by the CSA, fulfilling their old Golden Circle dream of a Caribbean empire. The Philippines remains Spanish. Then, the guns of August erupt in Europe. 1914. An archduke is assassinated in Sarajevo. The great European powers, tangled in alliances, cascade into a war that will consume the globe. In our world, America remained neutral for 3 years before tipping the balance as a unified giant. In this world, there is no unified America. The Confederate States, loyal to its British economic masters and aristocratic cousins in France, proudly joins the Entente. Confederate boys in gray are shipped to the trenches of France, eager to prove their new nation's worth. And the United States of America, the North, their greatest enemy, the CSA, has just joined Britain. Their other greatest enemy, Britain, the nation that armed the South and shattered the Union, is the leader of this new alliance. For 50 years, the USA has modeled its military, its industry, and its philosophy on the one European power that admires it, Germany. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. In Washington, the decision is swift. The United States of America declares war on the Entente. It joins the Central Powers. The Great War is now truly a world war, and it has a terrifying new front, not just in France, not just in Russia, but in America. The trenches are not just in Flanders, they are in Pennsylvania. The fields of Gettysburg, once a single battle, are now the epicenter of a permanent, horrifying front line. The War of Separation was a prelude. This is the War of Reunion, or the War of Annihilation, depending on which side of the river you stand on. Imagine it. American boys from Ohio, in their blue uniforms, firing machine guns at American boys from Kentucky, in their gray. German U-boats in this timeline are not just attacking British ships, they are docking in New York Harbor to refuel, welcomed as allies. The CSA, in turn, allows the British Navy to use Charleston and New Orleans as bases to blockade the North. The technological horrors of the Great War, poison gas, tanks, mass artillery, are not confined to Europe. They are unleashed in the Shenandoah Valley. The city of Atlanta, rebuilt after our Civil War, is leveled again. This is the new reality. A world without the American century. A world where the 20th century was not defined by the rise of a single, powerful, and united republic, but by the endless, bitter rivalry of two. A world where the great question of the 19th century, whether a nation conceived in liberty could long endure, was answered. And the answer was no. One battle, one hill, one moment. 10 minutes too late. We look back at the real Gettysburg, at the words Lincoln spoke there. A new birth of freedom. We see the terrible cost of the Civil War. 620,000 dead. We see the sacrifice and we ask, was it worth it? But this is the alternative. A world that traded one horrific, cleansing war for a century of cold, and then scorching hot conflict. A world where the wound never healed, but festered. A world where brothers' hate was not a temporary madness, but a permanent fact of geography, politics, and life. The story of the United States in our timeline is one of division and reconciliation, of a terrible price paid for a fragile unity. The story of this alternate world is a grim reminder. It shows us that history is not written in stone, but in sand, and that the line between one nation, indivisible, and two, forever locked in a rival's embrace, is as thin and as perilous as a bayonet's edge on a small rocky hill in Pennsylvania. What do you think would have happened? Would the North and South have ever found peace? Or would they, inevitably, have destroyed each other? Let us know your own theory in the comments. If you enjoy exploring the infinite realities of what if, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell, because history is never truly finished.